I've always had a love-hate relationship with my menstrual cycle. Yes, we are going to talk about periods today. It's like I've always known that it's an integral part of who I am. It's an integral part of my being. But society comments and judgments and how women were always supposed to behave during periods, not being given enough space to rest in pain, and so much, how to put it, like so much secrecy when buying pads or tampons, and a lot of PMS jokes and stuff like that. It made me have a very weird relationship with a very integral part of who I am as a woman, which is periods. And I think a couple of weeks back, I was in conversation with Tash Lancaster, who is our guest today. And just randomly, we just started talking about falling in love with our menstrual cycle, falling in love with our periods, and how it's one of the most powerful things ever as a woman, and how we can use it to design our life and business around it. I was genuinely mind boggled even through this episode. And one of the most beautiful miracles was that we ended up recording this podcast on a full moon when I was menstruating. I did not expect so many synchronicities when recording the podcast, and it was just so beautiful. Yes. Yes, it was. And I think you will, if you are a woman who has been having a different relationship with your menstrual cycle, I hope this episode of Soulfully Aligned Business podcast really helps you get more in touch with your cycle, irrespective of whether it comes on time or if it is an irregular cycle, whatever it might be, right? And I cannot be more grateful and I cannot be more honored with Tash being in the space. And she is just like, she has a world of information about this. And I wish I could have just continued the interview more and more and more and more, but it was beautiful. I know this is not a typical introduction, but somehow in my heart, I didn't feel like giving a typical introduction. Anyways.
Thank you so much for accepting to be a part of the podcast. I'm really honored, especially the interviews that I'm having recently. It's with beautiful women like yourself, and the energy is just so electric. Thank you. I'm very honored. I'm very grateful for you to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. For people who don't know you, don't know your background, even if what you do is different, is sort of different from what we are going to speak today, okay? Can you introduce yourself and what you do and how your practice looks like and how you guide people?
Of course, thank you. Yes, my name is Tash Lancaster and I am a tarot consultant. I specialize in reading tarot for businesses, for spiritual people who are running their businesses, and they're very much in touch of, they understand that there's a time and place for coach and the mentor, and they're very, that that's very masculine aspect of their business and the way you run business, but they're also leaning into their feminine, into that intuition, into that knowing. And this is where they come. So they come to me with all sorts of questions about business, about family, about life. But most people I attract are business owners. And then because I'm a business owner myself, I love talking business. So it's very easy for me to talk business because I really enjoy it and it's very close to my heart. So we can talk about pricing, we can talk about offers, we can talk about pivoting, all these things that make your life. But the menstrual cycle came about for me about 3 or 4 years ago, where I read the book. Actually read a couple of books about menstrual cycle, and they completely changed my life. I was like, oh my God, I've been doing it wrong. Not wrong. Yeah, I'm going to say wrong my whole life, because I was not in touch with my body. I was trying to push, especially when you're bleeding, especially when you're in a period. You've got no energy, you've got nothing to give. And when you were in that phase, when you're in that time, you try to push yourself, especially if you have meetings and you try to extract the inspiration that you don't have. So I've been living by my cycle for about 3 or 4 years now, and I've been running my business by my cycle. So if I'm bleeding, I'm very aware of it. So if I have readings that day, I actually quite like reading on if I'm bleeding. If I have a reading book when I'm bleeding, because that's when my inner witch is most powerful.
Exactly.
She's really close to that curtain between this world and the other world. And it's just fascinating watching the spirituality, or my spiritual side, my right brain, how it manifests throughout the whole cycle. So I'm so passionate about it.
It's crazy that you sort of changed. I know you changed my life by, like 1 degree or something, or probably more. I don't know. 7 days back when we had that call.
Mm.
Okay. And it was crazy. I was like, why didn't I think about this before? And I started reading the book Code Red that you had suggested me. Okay. And in that, she was like, she really opens up. Of course, we'll talk about it later too. But she really made me focus on what was my first experience like. Like, how did people react to it? How did I feel about myself when I had my first periods? And they sort of led me to have a conversation with my mom about. So I actually sat and I asked her, hey, this is this. I remember this is this happening. So like I remember me getting my periods on a Wednesday because that's when we had to wear white skirts in school. So I come back home and it's all red. It's completely red. And I sort of freak out. I remember I was in 5th grade. So when I was 9 to 10 years old. Yeah. And I come out, then my dad and my grandma and stuff are sitting, and my mom informs them. And then, they start. So in our culture, the 3rd day, we have like a function, okay,
Right.
at home. Like we have a ceremony at home when the girl sort of, hits puberty. And so everyone started preparing for that function.
Wow.
Okay. And I remember thinking, like, what's happening? I don't know what's happening, And then all my relatives and everyone are coming home. And okay,
did you not know what's going to happen? Were they not telling you? You didn't know it
at all. I actually, okay, this is my own stupidity, but I didn't realize what periods meant until I was in 9th or 10th grade.
So how old was that? How old were you?
Like 14, 15.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I remember, okay, I can't believe I'm telling this out. I'll probably edit this part out. But like, I remember keeping my pad out, okay, because it was just so uncomfortable to wear. I had just removed it and kept it by my side and had continued studying. Okay. And then I think my aunt saw it and she was like, Shruthi, what are you doing? When the house is like, when the house was crawling with guests, like the house had like 10, 12 people minimum inside. And she was like, Shruthi, like, what made you do this? And I remember like, oh, so many shit. I was like, the pad is so uncomfortable. Like the pad was genuinely really uncomfortable because I hadn't gotten used to it, like. And
like really clunky. Was it like a really clunky pad, like a really fat and
yeah.
When I first got my period, because I grew up in Ukraine, when I first got my period, and I can't believe I'm telling you this, but wow, what a story. Sometimes I feel like I've lived 100 years because I live in the UK now and I've lived here since 2006. But I grew up in Ukraine that was still part of former USSR. And when I first got my period, I was 11. We didn't have the pads. Like pads did not exist at the time. Maybe they did, like very, very wealthy people could afford them, but like my family couldn't. And we used rags, like old rags. And I remember, like, first time I got my period, I didn't know what it was. My mum had to explain to me. She didn't explain to me why it happens, but she explained to me the
Exactly.
process. And
Yeah.
I felt like I had this beautiful initiation because she gave me some clean rags and she showed me how to use them, how to fold them and everything. And then obviously I had to wash them later. And I feel like when I look back at that time, even though I was rags, even though I was so freaking primitive, I really fondly remember that time because I felt like I was initiated into the secret womanhood, I don't know, phase, society. And I felt like I'm one of women, like I was washing my rags and everything. And then it only lasted for about a year, maybe. And then the pads started coming in and the tampons came through. But
Oh,
I
wow.
thought that first, I don't know how long it was. I really couldn't tell you. Maybe it was 6 months, maybe it was a year. But I remember using the rags and I really remember that really fondly. That was a really nice it felt like initiation. I felt really special.
Oh,
So
wow.
random.
Yeah, like because I remember my mom sharing stories with me, like because she used to fold clothes,
Yep.
and keep them. And her bleeding used to be so like intense. So she used to be like, I used to come, I think she came every lunch home to change and then go back to
Oh
school.
wow, okay.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Yeah. It was, she's like, and I was really scared of it coming on my dress, right? So she used to,
Mm.
that's my dad, by the way, who's going. Yeah. So she's still like, I used to, so there, it's hard to explain Indian clothing. But, anyways, there were like multiple layers of clothing. So she could
Yeah,
like
yeah.
remove a layer of clothing and sit so that the other clothing does not get tainted.
Saturated,
And
yeah.
yeah, and she can still walk home without people
Wow.
staring. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's the kind of stuff that my mums did. That's their cycle. Quite a few
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
It's so beautiful to share these stories, isn't it? Because like we don't share these stories out in the open, at least in my world.
No, and I think the thing with cycle, the thing with periods is it's still shrouded in this guilt and shame. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of stigma about talking about bleeding. Like I remember when I started my journey, when I started my, I'm going to call it cycle awakening for the sake of this
Ah,
conversation. When I started my cycle awakening journey, and I was actually, what I did, I was journaling every day. So I would journal what day I was on, and I would journal how I feel that day, just a few sentences. And the patterns started emerging because I was collating the data on the most important, fascinating subject, which is myself, my body. And I started reading, of course, a lot more. So I read a ton of books. I started understanding the diet that should be going with each phase of the cycle, the hormones, the whole roller coaster of hormones, the estrogen, progesterone. I started understanding all that, and just read a lot more. And remember I started using the term bleeding instead of my period. And my partner, bless him, proper boy, proper boy. He found it really icky. He was
yeah.
like, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why? Like, this is what happens to women. We bleed from our vagina several days.
Yeah.
That's what happens. But the concept of that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of men find it really, they try not to think about it, try not to talk about it. And even women, it's like, when I first discovered menstrual cup, which was like, oh my God, because I'm
Yeah.
all about sustainability. So I love my menstrual cup. In the UK, they started doing pads that are dissolvable, they're flushable, and I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking
What?
amazing. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Oh my God. You can actually, it's only one company that does them called Floose, and they arrive on subscription. They're more pads and they arrive once a month. But I love them because you literally, even the packaging, you just chuck it down the toilet and it just dissolves. It's freaking amazing.
Wow.
I know, like I'm all here for this. But when I was when I first discovered the menstrual cup, and I remember like first couple of times I was using it, I was like, oh my God, the blood is fascinating. Like I see how women don't even want to think about it, touch it, and it's like, oh my God, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, when I started looking at it, I was like, whoa, that is really
Exactly
that's
right. It blew
fabulous.
my mind. I was like, first I was like, oh God, I bleed so much. Because I think when you're bleeding in the pad, you don't realize how much you bleed. And then in the menstrual cup, you realize how much is actually going out of your body. I'm like, wow, this is like my body is producing this and chucking it out.
I
And
know.
the other gender can't do this. It just
No.
blows my mind.
But what I also started doing, and I read it in one of the books that I think I recommended to you, is I try not to chuck the blood away. I usually dilute it with some water and just give it to my plants, either indoor plants or outdoor plants. Because if you think about it, what you're shedding is stem cells, and it's the uterus lining that your body created to nurture a baby. So it's filled with nutrients, it's filled with goodness, and it's like we're wasting it. So I collect it, dilute it with water, and just pour it on my plants, and they love it. I think there is so much to menstrual cycle. Like when I think, because I've been on this journey for such a long time, and for me, it's like it's just my Tuesday. Like I I do what I do with my cycle. When I first start bleeding, I tend to go and lie down for most of the day if I can. If I have anything booked throughout the day, I rarely cancel unless I'm really, really not well. But I'm just really, really aware of my energy. I'm really,
Yeah.
really conscious, and I take it really, really easy. But when I look back when I was in corporate, I remember being in pain, stuffing myself with painkillers, and heading up to London, on the train to work. And it's just like, and I remember trying to psych myself up, trying to squeeze the energy that I didn't have. But now it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is like,
Yeah.
how have I not seen this before? How have I not known this before?
You know what's been actually like life changing for me?
Mm,
It's informing my clients that, hey, I'm on my period.
on your
So
period.
I might like move a lot more than usual because I have to like move to sort of balance the pain and, get adjusted to it. So
Mm,
I am going to do that. And I might be a little bit more frazzled than usual, but my head and my heart are in the right space. So please deal with it. Okay. And I started doing that even to my male clients, with my male clients, and it's been mind-boggling. They're like, yeah,
I
sure,
bet.
cool. And of course, their first instinct and reaction is, hey, do you want to reschedule? Like, are you in
Mm,
too much pain to reschedule? But I'm like, no, I'm not in that much pain. But this just like, it is uncomfortable. So I might move a lot more because I'm just like, yeah. So please deal with that. Right. And
mm.
it's been crazy. It's been so beautiful and so heartwarming, to be honest.
But also for what you do, because you operate in the spiritual arena, you work with spirits and guides and, you know, all those beautiful beings. Um, when you're on your period and you show up for clients, like, yes, of course, it's time. I try to be in bed as much as I can. I try to be stationary as
Yeah.
much as I can. But actually, it's the time when you're really, all your senses are super heightened. Like
Mm.
your spiritual spidey senses, I'm going to call them spidey senses, are really heightened. You are so much more receptive and perceptive of things that you might normally um, miss, maybe, or don't see that way. But because your body is so calm, like if you imagine the roller coaster of hormones throughout the month, at the point of bleeding, the first 2-3 days, the day one, everything is like on minimum, like below minimum line. There's all the hormones have all the I'm talking about sex hormones here. They are low, so you'll have nothing in you. Like, you are most vulnerable, and it's like, it's the time when you don't even, I find this with myself, I don't even want to cry. Like, I almost feel numb.
Yeah.
The crying comes a few days before cycle. That's when the
Yeah.
crying comes.
Yeah.
But on the actual, when you, the first day of your bleed, you don't
just
even
sleep.
want to cry. You're just tired, and you're almost like vacant. You're just almost checking out. And on day 2 or 3, very, very early stages, the estrogen is starting to peak out. And I always imagine estrogen like snowdrop flowers. Like, it's those first signs of spring. And they're teeny tiny green shoots are poking out through snow. And that's how I see estrogen on about 3rd or 4th day. It's like it's those shoots are beginning to grow, and you start feeling a little bit better, and you kind of like, you wake up and you're going to go, I'm going to smash today, and then in about an hour time you're tired again, and that's because estrogen isn't quite out yet. So, and that's completely normal. That's totally normal.
I remember having a call in the morning, a 1.5 hour call, and then having a 3-hour nap. And then after this call, I know I'm going to have again a 3-hour nap. Because,
Yes.
yeah, oh
That's
my
normal.
gosh. Okay,
Go on.
you were saying something.
No, I was just thinking last week, I felt really jaded, and that's because I was on my period. I got my period because my body's my
Menopause.
period's all over the place at the moment with perimenopause, and I just felt really tired for the whole week, pretty much, like really, really shattered. And it's like, when you are this shattered, it's this thing with us women, we are so programmed to keep going. We're so programmed that shit has to be done, and we have to show up for that shit, even if we're not feeling well. So for me, it was like a big eye-opening experience of like, no, just go to freaking bed. Go to bed. Absolutely go to bed and sleep.
Yeah. I think this is slightly off topic, but for the first time in my life, I am okay with taking rest more than what is prescribed, right? Like, if I want to sleep for 15 hours, I will sleep for 15 hours without feeling guilty or desperate. And I think I've finally come to that point, and it feels beautiful.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Finally okay with going slow. Finally okay with not pushing myself all the fucking time.
But it's a journey, isn't it? It's a journey.
Okay. So for people who are listening, and who are new to understanding their menstrual cycles and understanding themselves, okay, let's talk about the cycle from start to finish. Okay, like let's create like a logical map for them, because it's easier to start with logic, right?
Okay.
So where does the menstrual cycle start, and what are the typical characteristics of a woman in that phase of her cycle, and what are the things that she can do? Like, what are the best things that she can do at that time, even if it is just sitting and doing nothing? Okay. So let's sort of dig deep and create a picture of that.
So before we get into the cycle, I'm gonna say menstrual cycle is a little bit like a software that we run in our body. So think of it as a software. We run 2 softwares in our body, and I'm going to bring men into here, but just for a second, just so I explain the complexity of it. Both men and women run something called day cycle. Okay, we all have it. Both men, all humans do. And when you wake up in the morning, you have certain hormones that get you to go, wake up. Melatonin goes down because light and everything. And then you've got cortisol and all the hormones, they propel you in the morning. You feel nice and fresh in the morning. You hit the day, and then you go through the day. In the afternoon, you have other hormones coming in. Some hormones come in, others kind of withdraw. In the afternoon, you kind of feel more sluggish towards the second part of the day. Then you feel like you need a happy hour. And then you come home, you eat, you watch TV, you kind of go to sleep. Hormones are responsible to all of that. And based on that day cycle, we now have a corporate structure. We have a 9-to-5 situation, because this is how men operate. And men have they repeat the same cycle every freaking day for the rest of their life. Okay. And every 15 minutes, I think, they have their testicles release just a fresh dose of testosterone. So testosterone is always high. Okay. And that's how the whole structure has been built, the whole 9-to-5 corporate day. Now, we women also live by this cycle minus testosterone. We also live by the same cycle. So this is like we run this software, day software. The thing with us is we have the second software that men don't have. We have a monthly cycle software. And this software introduces estrogen and progesterone as sex hormones, and these are the hormones that are responsible for the monthly cycle. So what this means is we still go through the day cycle every single day of a month, but on some days we're going to be more lively and fiery and like, I'm going to say amazing because we're always amazing, awake, I'm going to say inspired, productive, all those words, than other days. Okay, so we still have this complexity of the second part of the second software. So the cycle, I think of the cycle is the first day of your cycle is the first time of a period, and that becomes your day one. And what happens on your day one, or your that's called winter as well. I think of it as in seasons. It's your winter. It's in the winter. When you think of winter, everything is still, everything is dark, everything is resting, and like this is the time where you should be resting, really, in the ideal world. And that's when you're shedding the old self, if you think of it in the spiritual world and spirituality. And you also, you're obviously shedding the uterus lining so the new lining can start building up. And then that's you in the winter. Then you were going into spring, and spring is the time between end of your cycle, end of your period, and everybody's different. From 3 days to 7 days to 10 days, everybody's bleeding time is different. And especially if you've been on any sort of contraception, that really messes up your cycle. And I've been on a pill for about 15 years, and then I've been off the pill for the last 7 or 8 years, and my cycle never quite gotten back to where it was. So the second part of the cycle is in the spring. Now this is a beautiful time. It's the time of estrogen coming out to play. Estrogen is the hormone that makes us women. It gives us beautiful skin. It gives us boobies. It makes us who we are. It gives us all those feminine attributes. It's also the hormone of productivity and doing and inspiration. Like in spring, you're going to have a ton of ideas. You're going to feel like you're freaking invincible. Like you feel like you can pull off all-nighters. You can be like, you have ideas literally left, right, and center. All you have to do is catch them. And it's amazing. And it's the most productive time. And as your spring progresses, so basically what happens, everything is progressing towards your ovulation, and that's when an estrogen is still growing every day. So you have so much energy, you have so much inspiration, you're so excited. This is amazing time to write content, to produce, to record things, to come up with ideas, to brainstorm stuff. But this energy is so raw, and it's energy of the Fool. Think of tarot now. It's the energy of the Fool. It's the energy of, it's so fresh. There's so much excitement. It's just pure potential. There's so much excitement, so much zing going on, so much productivity. It doesn't pay attention to details at this point. We don't care about details. Estrogen doesn't give a flying fuck about details. It's all about, yes, let's create, let's make, let's, oh my God, I can do this and I can do this. It's a great time to brainstorm and create.
This is still during spring, right?
It's still spring. We're still heading off towards the culmination of ovulation. And you get to ovulation. Ovulation is a really cool period. So it's a very short period. It's your inner summer.
Yeah.
It's a very short period of time. I think it's around, again, everybody talks about it differently. Everybody gives different spin. Some say it's about 7 days. I think in reality it's about 3 days when you have the hormones are at their highest. So you have estrogen is speaking. Estrogen is like, oh my God, she is the goddess. We have a hit of testosterone here. So that's where we have that drive. That's where we're like, yeah. We can party. We can do anything. And progesterone is beginning to peak, and I'll talk about progesterone in a minute. Now, what that means is this is actually ovulation is an amazing time to sell stuff. It's because you are at irresistible. You are at your peak.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody loves you. Like somebody did an experiment, and I can't remember where I read about it, but somebody did an experiment and they asked women to take pictures of themselves throughout the cycle, like do selfies throughout the whole cycle. And every single woman loved herself more when she was ovulating. Because hormones, because you have that inner glow, you have your inner goddess is out. She is absolutely irresistible. So it's a good time to sell. It's a good time to have sales conversations. Good time to do, if you do things like what they're called, like challenges, like 5-day challenges or 3-day challenges, whatever, when you have to show up, when you have to sell your thing. This is the time to do that. It's the perfect time to do that, because people are, I mean, yes, you are extra magnetic. You emanate all this attraction power, and you attract things to you, and people love you even more. They can't explain why, they're just drawn to you. So this is a really, really, really short period of time, but also very precious and very, very powerful, like really powerful. And if you learn to harness that time, oh my God, like the sky's the limit for you. It's amazing. And then, so that's your ovulation. That's the things that you can do, and like use it. Plan your cycle around your ovulation, because like if you can plan your business around it, like having sales conversations or having whatever you do, whatever your business model is, do lots of it. Actually, if you pre-record videos in this time, because again, you are magnetic. You are like, oh my God, those videos are going to be freaking amazing. Pre-recorded videos, like do hair and makeup for a couple of days or for a day, and just do pre-record a bunch of stuff in that time, because you are so magnetic in that time.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh yeah, I can see the
yeah, I'm like, there's just so much happening in my head, but I don't want to interrupt you. Continue.
No, it's okay. And then, so once we've ovulated, we are going into inner autumn. And the inner autumn, I kind of divide. Okay, so if you think of autumn, okay, in normal life, in normal season, you kind of have a warmer part of the autumn, and then you have that really cold, rainy autumn in the run up to winter. Okay, it's the same with us. So in autumn, that first part of autumn is when estrogen is beginning to drop, the hormone of productivity and party, that party animal in us, that hormone is beginning to drop and withdraw. But the second hormone, progesterone, is coming up. Now, I always think of estrogen and progesterone are like two sisters. The estrogen is the girl who is wearing high heels. She's a party animal. She's out there every night. Everybody loves her. She knows everybody. She is a freaking out there, and that's your spring, and she's massively contributing towards your ovulation. And then she's kind of withdrawing. The second hormone, progesterone, the second sister, I think of her as sister. She is somebody who is a little bit plumper. She's wearing glasses. She likes reading books and eating chocolate and drinking tea. And she just wants to be left alone. She's very chill.
My kind of person.
She's very chill. She's very just like, leave me alone. Now, progesterone is the hormone that makes us calm and chill. Now, why do I have that? Because if you were to get pregnant during the ovulation, what the progesterone would do, it will just it just kind of calm you down. It just brings you that inner peace. It just kind of, it's the nesting hormone. It's the comfort kind of care, nurture hormone. And it stays in your body. So if you didn't get pregnant, it stays in your body. It doesn't stay in your body for that long. I can't remember the exact amount, the exact length of time, but I'm going to say around 5 days, I think. And I'll explain to you why in a minute. And in that time, in that first few days after ovulation, you suddenly feel really, really calm. You feel very kind of like, you're not withdrawn, you're just quite happy to sit and read, maybe. Your productivity, it's a very different productivity. So if in the first part of the cycle was all about creating and writing and producing, and it's like, oh my god, it's fantastic, this is the time to look at it again with a cup of coffee and a red pen. This is editing phase. And she's able to because she's very calm, your energy is very different. You're a lot calmer. This is a really good time to go into it with an editing phase. There's another character that I always imagine that comes in spring, and it's your inner bitch, your inner critic. Because she's good with editing. She oversees the whole thing of editing. You can take what you've created in this part of the cycle, and you can bring your inner critic into this, and she will rip it to shreds. She will be like, okay, that's not good, that's no good. What were you thinking about writing that? Like it's like almost a different brain looking at the whole thing. But she also can be really critical on you as a person. So this is the time when you're going to be looking at yourself in the mirror and you're going to be like, I'm so bad, my hair is ridiculous, like I've got a pimple on my face. Like, this is when you will be having those thoughts. This is usually the time, and we all have that. We absolutely all have, but it's just your inner critic. And actually, the beauty of the menstrual cycle is you can learn to work with that inner critic. And if you know she's coming, and she comes every month, like, come on, this is like, let's get on with the program, shall we? She comes in every month. Give her stuff to do. Like, give her shit to edit. Give her stuff to look at. Like, she's really good at that. This is the time, that really pragmatic time to go.
Like, keep her engaged. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody said to me, no, I've read this somewhere. And I think it's really cool. If you have a big decision to make, like you're in a relationship that's not working and you're kind of considering to break up with this person, take that relationship through a couple of cycles and see how you feel. Because if you, in the first part of the cycle, they can get away with murder because you have, people can get away with murder with you because you're so out there. You're open to the world. Like, you are open. You're welcoming. In the second part of your cycle, you're kind of closing in. So it's your internal time for you. And when that inner critic comes in after the spring that you've just had in summer, and that person is not scoring any brownies with you,
Yeah.
it happens for a couple of cycles, then you know what decision you need to make. You know, it's really powerful to take that, whatever big decision you have to make, take it through a couple of cycles and see how two different hormones react, how two different archetypes react to the same situation. And that will give you an idea of how you feel. But also the inner critic. If you had a spring where people have been taking advantage of you, or you've been feeling really tired, or you've been working yourself into the ground and not really enjoying it, like there's been not really good energy, and because in that first part of the cycle you genuinely don't care, like things don't bother you as much,
Exactly. Yeah.
like socks like socks on the floor or whatever, like in spring I don't give a flying, honestly. There's just socks on the floor. In autumn, very different situation. But if you were going through a situation of something in spring that you didn't care about, and you took that situation into your autumn, and you haven't dealt with it in spring, in autumn, you're going to really feel it, because that inner critic doesn't let you get away with anything. She's going to come out and rip that thing apart. Like, what do you think you're doing? And it's actually really helpful to have a conversation with her. You know, you can take this to your journal and see what she says. See what you really, really think about it. So, you know how I said you have two parts of the cycle. So you have, in the first part of the cycle, in the first part of your autumn, critic isn't really present yet. And you're going to notice the shift between about day 20, let's say day 20 and day 25. That's when your progesterone, the hormone that's making you really calm, is beginning to leave the building. Now, by then, estrogen has already left, testosterone has left, because testosterone cleared out after the party, after the ovulation. And now the last hormone, the last sex hormone, is leaving you. Progesterone is dropping. And that happens around day 25. And this is when you really notice. This is when the anger comes out, the tears come out, the hunger, the craving chocolate comes out, like big time, big time. I mean, progesterone is a hormone that likes sugar anyway. So if you know progesterone's coming, you know, adjust your menu, like include lots of carb based food, like rice and potatoes, and like good carbs.
Yeah.
Give her the sugar that she wants, but give her good sugars. And when she's withdrawing, I always call it progesterone withdrawal symptoms, because that calmness is leaving your body. That hormone that makes you calm is leaving your body, and you become this raging rah! Like you become hungry, you become angry, you become sad, like you feel everything so much. Like I often sleep in a separate room from my partner because I love him very much, but this is the time when I just want space. Like there's nothing wrong with him. I absolutely adore him.
Yeah.
But
don't come near me, please.
Yeah, I just want to be by myself.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk to me, don't even look at me. It's that kind of vibe. And that's normal. Okay, that's again, but this is also really good time this is the good editing time. This is a good time to look at the situation that's not working and start thinking about making decisions. Don't make a decision yet.
That's the key. Yeah.
Start thinking about making a decision. Like, how do you feel? But just be really gentle. This is the time when you start feeling tired and sluggish, and just like, this is the time when you start craving chocolate and sweets and just like, oh. And then you finally, and is estrogen dropping towards the end of it, it's gone completely. So on the first day of your bleed, you have no hormones. Like they're all on that base, on that minimum line. If you imagine the line, that's where your hormones are. So on day one, you've got no hormones left. You've got no anger, no sadness, nothing. You just feel tired and numb. That day one
empty.
is really vulnerable. And the only person who can really, really, really look after you is you, because men, and I love men, they can't look after you the way you can, because simply because they can't relate to what's happening, to the roller coaster of hormones that's happening in your body. And only you can give yourself what you need. And very often it's sleep. It's just be in bed and allow yourself. I don't have it this much anymore, but on the day one, I just love getting in bed, not in bed, but like on the bed, wrap myself in a fairy blanket, wear something comfortable, and I just focus on my womb. I just focus my attention on my womb, and I just allow my body. It's almost like I almost like meditate on it, and I allow my body to do its thing, and I just honor it. Like, okay, you do what you have to do. That's okay. We're going to be calm today. If we have a call, if we have a reading later, that's okay. We're going to do it, or sometimes not do it, depending how I feel. Most of the time I do it because I know I'm actually at most powerful in this time. But I will then come to bed again, and I just take it really, really easy that day. The bleeding time, oh, that's another thing. In Chinese medicine, they talk about cold and hot part of your month, like hot and cold hot foods. So during your bleed, it's the coldest time of your part of your month. So that's why you will naturally be craving hot food, like soups and stews and curries and like things that are hot in temperature. In spring, it's the hot time, and towards ovulation, you will notice that you actually crave light things like salads and just light vegetables, and you're not really hungry either. So, and if you do,
I know what you mean.
if you do intermittent fasting, it's easier to fast in the first part of the cycle, because estrogen doesn't like sugar. And in fact, estrogen, just like, you can quite easily pull off a 3-day fast with no problem. Like, you would not even notice it. You will, of course, but you would notice. Day 20 onwards towards your bleed, don't fast at all. You have to eat. Progesterone has to eat. Progesterone needs feeding.
Oh my gosh.
And you will notice that if you're doing intermittent fasting, for example, you can pull off 20 hours quite easily with first part of the cycle. You go into the second part of the cycle, you had your dinner, you get to breakfast, and you can't wait to eat by 9 o'clock. Like, I need food all the time.
Yeah, like it's like I started noticing it in our last conversation, because there are days when like one meal is more than enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to eat that much food. Like one meal is more than enough. And then there are days where I have like 5 meals a day. Okay. I'm like, what's happening? Like, why am I doing it? So that question kept going in my head, but I just never looked out for answers. And that conversation I had with you last week, I was like, fuck. Oh wow.
That's
Oh
fine.
wow. Yeah. Okay, so you have genuinely boggled my mind a lot. And so many things are coming out, right? Couple of realizations mainly that I would love to share. One, my immediate thought process was, oh shit, we are having like a 1 month productivity cycle, you know? Then, oh, I have to slow down. Oh, I will not be productive enough on some parts of the day and like some parts of the month, right? And is it going to reduce the pace of my drive or the things that I want to do, right? And then immediately my soul was like, so what? And it was like, you're going to live for years and years and years. What if, and you need to be sustainable. So what? So what if you're not productive enough on a couple of days of the month? Like, even if it is half of the month, so what? Right? And that being me as a productivity freak all my life and an extremely intellectual person all my life, it was very beautiful to hear from my soul as you were talking. And one question that I would like to ask you is, so you spoke about the inner critic, right? Inner critic coming out in the second phase of the menstrual cycle, like in the second half of the menstrual cycle. And when you were talking about that, that's when I also realized that women are more critical of ourselves and others than men, right?
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm just generalizing, but this is what I've read, which is where like women have, of course, there are societal parameters and variables and all that stuff, but women generally have lower self-confidence and are more critical of themselves than men, right? So this inner critic that you speak about, is it like the friendly inner critic, or is it the victimization kind of an inner critic? Is it like a friend criticizing you, saying, hey, for example, Tash, like, what are you doing? You deserve more than this, like, don't do this. Is it that kind of inner critic? Or is it the putting you down sort of inner critic? What sort of inner critic is it? And how can we optimize it for this kind of inner critic, for the more positive sort of critic?
Good question. I think the answer is a little bit broader than just your cycle. I think your inner critic very much depends on where you are on your journey. So, to put it in a much broader perspective, we have been living in a patriarchal society for the past 5,000 years. We've had matriarchal society before. We shifted to patriarchal society. And it's still very prevalent in our society these days. Like, look at corporate structure. Women can't, I've spoken to so many women, they can't even go to their line managers, who are women, to say that they've got debilitating period pains, like, because somehow that's shameful. We're inheriting this shame and guilt around our cycle from our mums, we absorb it from culture. So by depending on what you are and where you are on your journey, how you feel about yourself in general will determine the harshness of that inner critic. It really, really depends where you are. So for me, that inner critic, I can work with her now because I know her and I've watched her closely. I'm going to say not closely, consciously for the past 4 years. I understand when she comes in, I understand why I begin to feel the way I do, and I adjust my life accordingly. So I will sleep in the guest room for a few nights because I need that. I will have some stuff to edit, or I will have some decisions that have been kind of on the slow burner, and I've just had some ideas, and I will take it through that inner critic and be like, okay, what am I doing? And see how she reacts, see what she says, it's almost like your shadow work. It's almost like you think about that subconscious mind. It's almost like it's that mind comes in to really play and to really run the show. You can work with her, and she's brilliant. She's just as important as that first part of the cycle woman, as that happy, clappy, inspired woman. She's just as important because she's the girl, she's young, she's really, really young. And if you go through archetypes, that's your maiden. Then you go to oh my God. Then you go to mother. Ovulation is your mother. The autumn, that critic time, this is your wise woman. And finally you have the crone when you bleed. And the wise woman has been through the maidenhood. She's been through all this excitement. She's been through being mom. And she is now the woman who just says fuck you to anybody who is like around her and no longer serving. It's no longer serving her. Like, she doesn't care. She's Helen Mirren. She's that woman who says, I wish, when somebody asked her, what regrets do you have or something, and she says, I wish I told fuck off more often when I was younger. And that's what I think, like, of the wise woman. She doesn't care about criticism anymore. She lives for herself. She is that woman. So it depends where you are on your journey. So your critic could be harsher, or she could be, you can learn to work with her. You literally have to get to know her. You just have to go through several cycles very, very consciously and see how she shows up. What does she say? What is the repeated pattern that what is she talking about all the time? Is there a specific subject that keeps coming up over and over again? You can actually work with her and use that time to your advantage. Of course you can. It's so powerful. And the thing is, it's been in you all these years. You just need to activate it. I know it's a broader answer that you were looking for, but there is no straightforward answer to that question.
Just before you said this, I imagined grandmothers as the inner critic. Okay. I imagined a much older version of any of my ancestors. Okay. That was a visual that came before my eyes.
Okay.
And I imagined me hugging her. Like, that was because she has, oh my gosh. Okay. Slightly off topic, but recently I had a conversation with Kat Chu. She's on LinkedIn, and I'm also going to invite her to a podcast episode. And she was talking about how women pass on trauma and gratitude and strengths to generation, because healing and emotions are very matrilineal in nature. So I was talking with her about money trauma, and she was like, and I was like, I don't know why I have that. Okay. Though I have been brought up in a middle class household, I've never struggled with money. Then why am I so obsessed with money? And she told me that, Shruthi, do you realize that even until 2 generations back, women did not have bank accounts? They did not have the power of money. And not having that power, not having that control over money, and not having it and seeing it in your hands, it builds frustration. It builds that desperation and that helplessness, which passes through generations.
Wow.
And she was like, do you realize that as you have been passed on all the good and bad things through generations, you can also send it upwards? And she was like, Shruthi, can you send the gratitude you have for the money you own today, for the place that you are in today, for the things that you own, for your house that is in your name, right? For everything, the gratitude and the love you have for money in various forms, can you send it up to them? And my logical mind suddenly was like, how, Kat? Like, how do I do it? And she was like, you just have to have faith. And you just have to believe. And the past couple of weeks, I've been meditating on sending love and gratitude up to them, because, and I'll tell you how this relates to what we were talking, like, because in my head, I sort of imagined that inner critic as a very elder ancestor or a past life version of me who has been through so much trauma, okay, but has never gotten a chance to heal herself. And she's sort of, for some people, not for everyone, for some people, she's become really bitter and very brittle because of her experiences. Okay.
Mm.
But she has such a beautiful soul inside of her. It's just that because of her experiences, she has become like that, and she's become really critical about herself and others. Okay. And if we can not hate her, and if we can just see her, and if we can love her and hug her, even if she avoids it in the beginning, the image that came to my head was me hugging her forcefully and she fighting with me. And like after a couple of moments, she just breaking down because she needed it.
Yes, there is an element of that. If this is how you see her, then absolutely. For me, she's almost like, if you imagine yourself and then you have 4 different parts of you, she's just one of the parts of you, and these 4 parts, they kind of walk in circle, and one of them always comes into the kind of spotlight. And this part of yourself is somebody who, we need her. You need her. I understand what you're talking about, healing, but she will always be critical. She is built that way. It's the part of you that
That's
needs
true.
to be there to give you what you need at that part of the cycle. Because when you're talking about the elders, I understand what you're talking about, but I actually think of the crone. Like, I like crone because crone for me is that old woman who has lived her life, and and it's like, it's your period, and she sits by the fire, and you just come and sit next to her very quietly, and there's not a lot of talking, but now and then she will say something so insanely profound that you just gonna be like, whoa, where did that come from? And with the crone, it's just stillness and quiet, and all you hear is the fire crackling. And that's how I imagine being in the bleeding phase, because it's so still. All you want to do is just be still, and you just listen to fire. You're looking at the stars, and you just sit next to her, and you just in the moment.
Oh my
While
God.
the inner critic, and it's like, you're going through the phase, like the first part of the cycle, yes, you are excited, you are young, it's like your teenage years, your university time, you're that kind of 20s, like yay. And then you have your mother time, where you come into the whole, you start having children, you start building businesses. Like, I'm talking, like, I'm not a mum myself, but you start building businesses. It's your 30s, it's your 40s, maybe coming into 40s as well. It's that time when you're building business, when you come into the kind of culmination. And the inner critic, it's that perimenopause, menopause, where you have done the businesses, you've partied, you've had the businesses, you've had the children, and you're kind of enjoying that ride. You're almost enjoying, you've had so many experiences through your whole life, and you've learned from all those experiences, and you've learned to tell people to fuck off. You've
Oh my
learned to say no without feeling guilty, because you're not feeling like it. And in this time of your life, no is the full answer without explaining yourself. And it's that time when you're enjoying your life. You have all the experiences, but you're enjoying your life. You may be traveling, you're still running businesses, but you have so much experience. And the crone is when you just sit there, and you're just watching the fire, and you're just enjoying that stillness.
Oh my God.
That's how I see it.
It just fascinates me, like how different are the images that come to our head, right? And when you were saying that, I was like, yes. And somehow when you were sharing this, I'm like, this woman who I see, like, this is what happens after I finish hugging her.
Oh, there you go.
You know, and after she has let go of all that bitterness, and then she becomes that mentor and that friend, and she becomes the good kind of inner critic where she is needed, she's there with me throughout, and it's just it now I'm just so in awe of my brain. I'm like, wow, like how do you conjure up such images and such feelings? And it's beautiful.
It's your own journey, and the way you experience all those 4 parts of your cycle would be slightly different to the way I experience it. And it's all about the experiences that you've had and the journey you're on, and it will be slightly different to mine. It's cultural, it's your journey, the spiritual, it's experiences. We all have slightly different stories and we all see them slightly differently. So, but overall, that's kind of the structure, the 4 parts of the cycle and those 4 archetypes.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. To be honest, I had my mind, not my soul, my mind had a little bit doubt before asking you, or even before coming on this interview, thinking of publishing this podcast out, because I do have a good amount of male viewership and readership too. And I was like, can I talk about periods out? Like, can I openly talk about them? Can I openly talk about period stories? And then my soul sort of became bigger than my mind, and it was like, yes, you can. It's a part of who you are. It's a part of the world that you are a part of. And yes, do it, do it, do it. And I cannot be more grateful for this, like for this conversation. It just makes me so in awe. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad it helped. I'm so glad it helped.
Okay, so we are sort of towards the end of the recording. To all the women who are, to all the women like me who know how important the day this is, and but who are in the beginning of their journeys, right? Or they are like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, about understanding their bodies, about understanding their period cycles, about designing their life and business according to their periods. What would you say then? Like, what would you tell them?
If you listen to our conversation and you found it interesting, but you were like, oh my God, what is she talking about? This is so confusing. Take the first step. Start doing teeny tiny steps. And the first step you can do is get an app on your phone and start tracking your cycle. The first day is your period, and start tracking that cycle. That's the first step you can do. And then that way your body, you begin to collect the data on your own body. The second thing you can do is start charting your cycle. And charting cycle is slightly different. It's basically having a journal, and in the journal, start writing out every day. So spend a few minutes. Doesn't have to be long, but spend a few minutes writing about what day of your cycle it is. Like, I still journal 4 years on, and I always start with a date, the day of my cycle, the zodiac, where the moon is and what zodiac is today, and the tarot. So I throw tarot for the day as well. So I always write those 4 things. And I write about how I feel, like what's happening with my cycle, how my body feels, because you will start understanding the data. You will start understanding what patterns are emerging, because there will be patterns. Of course, there will be patterns. And then finally, research it. There's so much literature out there at the moment. The books that come to mind are by Lisa Lister. She's the UK women.
I'll add the links to the books in the description.
And another person to follow is Alyssa Vitti. I'll send you those links. She's written 2 books called Woman Code and In the Flow. And she talks a lot about what foods are good to eat or not to eat. And that she's amazing. And actually, from those books, you will start getting amazing understanding of a cycle. And if you're into intermittent fasting, and I can't recommend this book enough, is Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Pelz. So she talks about cycle as well, but she talks about fasting with your cycle so you don't mess up your hormones. And just those three authors can give you this amazing, will set you on an amazing journey of understanding your cycle. And just listen to your body every day. It's just that simple. There's no magic here. There's just that simple. Just start whenever your first day is. Start that charting, start that tracking, and then that's the journey that will never end.
I'm going to
Probably.
start doing it. Yeah, I'm going to start doing it. Yesterday was my first day 1.
There you go.
I'll start doing it.
There you go. It's such an exciting journey. I'm so excited for you.
Any last words before we end the call?
Take time to understand your body. Take time to do this work because it's so worth it. I started this journey in my mid to late 30s, and you know what, I really wish I did this in my 20s, because I would have spared myself so much heartache and so much drama. It's the journey definitely worth taking, because wow, it's the most fascinating subject you will ever explore, which is yourself. So I thoroughly recommend taking this journey.
You so much. It was eye-opening in a lot of ways, and I think when we initially start our healing journeys, we started to sort of fix ourselves, you know, one more trauma to fix, one more course to take, or something else to learn, or something to do. And this outside to inside journey, at least for me, has just made me fall more in love with myself and my soul and every part of myself. So this feels like the next stage of falling in love with myself, genuinely falling in love with myself as a whole. And thank you for introducing that.
My pleasure. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the ride.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for everyone who's listening. Thank you for just being there and sitting throughout the conversation that we've had. I really hope that the conversation inspired you, that conversation made you like a couple of steps aware of your body and yourself, and made you fall just a little bit more in love with yourself. Thank you. Thank you so much.